My name is Emily Alman, and I will be discussing subsidies as well as their role in international trade, and then focusing more specifically on agriculture and in the U.S. So a subsidy is defined as a financial contribution, including any form of income or price support made by a government that confers a benefit on a specific domestic enterprise or industry. So in kind of in concluding on that, basically, if there is a specific trade or an industry that a country, really values or does well on, and wants to almost keep that almost like domestic pride in, the government kind of steps in and wants to help out and make not necessarily an exception, but wants to help it out to be able to continue to succeed. And there's kind of some pros and cons with that on the argument of having, doing well with your domestic product versus kind of hurting globalization and hurting the international trade economy by preventing your country from wanting to import these other goods because you're kind of almost essentially babying it in your own economy. So some examples of these financial contributions is number one, directly giving money or grants, which in turn can affect the interest rate, having loans at a lesser interest rate than they normally would with any other goods or other imports. The second one is not collecting specific revenues or taxes on these products or industries, providing investment capital if the investment decision is inconsistent than the usual practice of private investors or the country, furnishing goods or services other than the general infrastructure, and lastly, purchasing goods from firms at a higher price than what they're normally marketed or their marketplace. So there are a lot of government programs that kind of help these countries with the grants and the financial aspect, like I just had discussed, to ultimately help this industry succeed, and they're not doing it to intentionally decrease international trade, but kind of for the greater good to help the specific industry. A lot of times you'll see it with manufacturing and agriculture. Not only in the US, but in Japan and the European Union alone, they spend a lot of money to specifically agriculture as well as the manufacturing, but we're going to kind of focus on agriculture. I may be a little biased. I'm from the Midwest and South Dakota, where farmland and agriculture is a huge part of what this state succeeds in, and my family alone is considered one of them. So you kind of have to look at it as the U.S. farmers and the agriculture versus the entire world of are they babying them too much? And I think that a lot of it, as I was kind of reviewing and doing the research on it, I kind of got to go thinking about my own generation and even myself. I am so proud of what my parents do and having my own beef and going to the farmers markets and supporting, homeland food. But then again, I'm also this hip millennial that I order this box that ships in foreign beans and all these other agricultures, and I think it's kind of that mix of being all hip and, also wanting to try other foods of the world, and the expansion of the food industry and the restaurant, and kind of more of the, the glamorous side of the food industry, I don't think helps the agriculture side of it at all. So you're seeing this increase in the U.S. population and more decrease of the need of the corn and the wheat and the meat that we produce in the country. So they seem to care a lot, Americans and ourselves, we care a lot about importing food, and, I love Italian more than anything in the world, and so just seeing all these, spending the money on having this imported food versus focusing on the great that we have here. In the U.S., really, we have a high percentage we're very self-sufficient in the production of meat, poultry, dairy products, vegetables, grains. It really is a wide variety, and I think that it is very important that the U.S. does see this and does appreciate it, because with the increase, we need to almost value the fact that we have this great support and people that rely on this for jobs and for feeding the U.S. versus more of a glamorous hobby. We do need to appreciate agriculture, and I do think that, appreciating it, giving it the subsidies and some financial leeway is very important, and to be able to almost take care of the farmland that we have here. It could definitely go for any other industry, but for the sake of it, is agriculture is very important, and we do have such a wide variety that we are very blessed to have in the U.S. And I think, like I stated earlier, living and growing in the heart of it definitely helps myself appreciate it, to support that, and to be aware of not taking advantage of it, and to allow the government to have that leeway, but to still be appreciative of the international trade. So I think there's definitely a fine line, and in the not taking advantage and still staying ethical about the subsidizing and the dumping and everything else that we've learned in this lesson plan.